This is the Travel and Tourism Show on Star FM.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Travel and Tourism Show. I'm your host, Mazwi Shamu. This is the show that brings you information on places to travel to, how to travel, as well as what to do and how to do it. Aside from giving you tips, we highlight various issues in the travel and tourism industry. We continue our conversation this week with the Minister of Tourism and Hospitality, Honorable Dr. Walter Mzembi, regarding tourism in Zimbabwe. Last week, Dr. Mzembi explained the importance of tourism for the economy, said that 1 in every 12 jobs in the country is a tourism-related job. Stay tuned as we continue to unravel Zimbabwe, a world of wonders.
Star FM, sounding good all the time.
Do we have enough transportation systems to take our tourists from one place to the other? I'm thinking of a tourist who comes in through our Harare International Airport. They want to go right round Zimbabwe. They want to do the Eastern Highlands. They want to do Great Zimbabwe. What sort of transportation systems, or are there plans in future to put transportation systems in place? Because I think at the moment, the best deal they can get is to hire a car.
Well, that is an entrepreneurial activity. We conceived a tourism policy that speaks to a government-led, private sector-driven, community-oriented tourism product. I feel let down by the middle link, the private sector, in that it has not responded adequately in putting a tourist bus service or networks that can move tourists internally from one point to another. So we don't have those buses marked for tourism. And I think we also should take the blame as government. Maybe we should put a facility where, budding entrepreneurs can begin to look at that area. But it is also a function of the demand itself. The demand must be there. Otherwise, you invest in tourist buses that no one rides.
But we're getting a lot of, you mentioned earlier on that the domestic tourists, the local people are traveling during the holidays and their public holidays.
If I had an option myself, I would be on a bus.
Would be on a bus
On
too.
a bus, yeah.
Yes.
So we need to market public transport, decent public transport. It is not just buses alone.
Yes.
It is the rail system. It is the buses.
That's right.
It is the cheap airlines that can internally distribute quicker and faster. We can only do that to the extent that also the road system is also in place to facilitate that. And I'm making a plea as recent as last week in our cabinet that the emergency roads response by Minister of Transport, Minister of Macroeconomic Ventures should also look at economic arteries, as I refer to them. That is roads leading to economic hubs and activities. Yes. Maybe in agriculture, mining, and tourism. So today, if you go to the Troutbeck Inn and you want to access the world's view right up there, it's inaccessible.
The road is very difficult
to navigate. But that's to the world's view, as we have designated it, and it is universally acknowledged as that kind of spot. So we need to look at that. And that's why today, even as we do the interview, you would notice that we started the sensitization of the National Tourism Master Plan, which is our dashboard on product development. And it includes ability of tourist attractions internally, whether by road, rail, or air. It speaks to that. And we are saying the National Tourism Transport Master Plan must speak to the National Tourism Master Plan in terms of enabling those things to happen.
Victoria Falls is now an economic processing zone. What does that mean?
It is now a special economic zone. In the National Tourism Master Plan that I was launching in terms of its sensitization, we have 11 designated tourism zones across the country. The Victoria Falls is the first one to be adopted and piloted as a special economic zone. It's a new concept in the country, and we are still benchmarking with special economic zone experiences elsewhere. It is actually just a special dispensation beyond your normal trade and investment incentives that you give to investors, to one that virtually concedes many of the issues that would insist on, like your compliance with indigenization could be dispensed with, and you allow 100% ownership from those zones, 100% repatriation, in lieu of employment generation, in lieu of planting of assets. Because when assets are planted physically, they don't move. So if we had, for example, designated the construction of Tekom Kosi as a special economic zone many years ago, perhaps its construction would have taken 2-3 years, okay? Because somebody then brings all his might to complete the project within the shortest period of time, because he's going to own it for a period of time and then surrender it back to the state. These are incentives that are put in place to accelerate economic development. And you then trade in some of those things that you would ordinarily insist on in lieu of the asset, because once the dam is built, it doesn't grow legs to follow the original developer. It stays with you, okay? So this project, which took 20 years to build, would perhaps have taken 3 years and would have benefited out of it for 17 years than to take 20 years doing it out of your own resources and short-circuiting a whole generation from enjoying its benefits. So you have to look at those pros and cons and cost-benefit analysis and say, what are we letting go for now in order to have this asset, which we will own anyway after the surrender period. So the Victoria Falls, we are inviting investors to come and plant assets that they will own in lieu of those areas that we want to emphasize: assets, employment generation. We earn our money from taxes, just like all governments in the world. Yeah. So the more assets, the merrier. So we earn our money on volume of assets than having just one hotel or two that are owned by your few oligopolies, and then you tax the few and your tax base is as narrow as this. Yeah. So we are going for product and infrastructural expansion in order to close the gap between the performance of the Victoria Falls with similar natural endowments like Niagara and Iguazu, which are 30 billion economies, while your Victoria Falls is only 1 billion, because we have not moved to the next stage of closing the infrastructural gap so that we make our tourists stay longer, spend more. But I must applaud government when everything is said and done, because I don't want to sound like a critic all around, to point at the good work that has been done around the commissioning of the new Victoria Falls Airport, the signing up of airlines. They are in a queue right now, waiting to be signed up. And it has stretched us to the limit, as you can see, with the few additional airlines. We've even created serious queues. So we need to up also our service culture, our service charter, so that we process people electronically. The future belongs to e-commerce. So if you are talking tourism, the future belongs to e-ticketing, to e-passports, to electronic borders, electronic visas. We must see that virtual electronic future. If we don't, we will create virtual queues in our systems everywhere.
I'm going to talk about the attractions now. Most of our attractions are natural or physical features. I know you touched a little bit on it as you were answering just now, but are there any plans to further develop this? Is it a disadvantage for us only relying on the wildlife and our cultural sites and Victoria Falls? I know certain destinations have got things set up, like if I talk about South Africa, I'll think of Ushaka Marine, I'll think of Gold Reef City, these theme parks that have been built up within those destinations. Is that a disadvantage to us in any way?
Yes, we are disadvantaged competitively to the extent that the natural products, which we call biodiversity, tourism, it constitutes 80% of our product for all of us in Africa. So if you want to go the step further to create competitiveness, you have to differentiate in terms of product development.
Yes.
And you create these add-ons like theme parks. They help in actually expanding the market base beyond those that understand biodiversity, to include family tourism,
yes,
to include children, Okay? And this is why the Victoria Falls, you will see that within our plans to close the infrastructural gap and add new products, we are talking about theme parking. But that should not only happen in Victoria Falls. Every province in this country must have a theme park.
Should have something, that's right.
And that's why I've designated 11 tourism development zones. My plan is that every province must have that theme park, somewhere where people say we are going to our own Disneyland.
Yes.
For lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Now, each time I invoke this term, the detractors of our country out there, they are very quick to slam us on being over-ambitious, being unrealistic in prescribing products such as Disney's, when we should be talking about basics like food in the stomach. But they forget that I have my own mandate as tourism minister.
Yes.
That compels me to look at how we can be competitive in that realm by adding these products. There are people with mandates to feed us, and yet others with mandates to educate us, and another group with mandates to look after our health. I have a mandate to bring happiness to the people of Zimbabwe.
That's true. That's true.
And I can't bring happiness to the people of Zimbabwe if I'm not creative. So Disney's are creative products. And we will go a step further in the future, beyond Disney's, to virtual tourism, aligned to the technological revolution. And no one should criticize us for aligning to a technological edge or a technological revolution. It's within my mandate. I'm doing things that are within my mandate.
That's right.
And aligned to innovation, aligned to the technology revolution.
That's right. At the end of the day, these things bring in money to the country.
Absolutely.
Because people come in with lots of money to spend, thousands of dollars, do one safari, the next safari, see a couple of sites, nothing left
but if you
to
look
do.
at the value chain in safari operations, it benefits very few people. And this is why we are now saying we want community-based tourism enterprises.
Yes.
I'm moving to a stage where I'm seeing in Zimbabwe ecological regions 4, 5 lending themselves as natural habitats for the expansion of conservancies. And we should encourage people who have been allocated smaller plots through our land reform program, 50 hectares, to actually join these small hectares and turn them into conservancies, okay? And you create large habitats for wildlife that people in urban areas can retreat to during weekends and enjoy as part of their recreational experience. But they are habitats that are just conservancies in their own rights, as characterized by the ecological regions that I've just shared with you, 4 and 5. So, for example, if you come to Masvingo, the area around Bikita, Saka, Kutu, parts of Masvingo are natural conservancy areas. So instead of fighting for those that have been erected already, we use them as seedlings of experience on how to expand the frontiers and get our seed stock of wildlife into these areas and replan even our villages in a manner that allows us to coexist with wildlife. And then we'll be part of that opportunity. Yeah.
How much education is on the ground for people to actually know these things and to take them on? Because you can only take up something like what you are saying if you know about it. What are the drives that the Ministry of Tourism has in place?
Well, what colonialism did was to create national parks. And we designated 20% of our land as national parks for the resettlement of animals, these habitats. And it's called the Yellowstone model, named after the first national park in the United States, 1872 thereabout. But what that model also did was basically to outlaw human activity in national parks to the extent where only rangers and those that come to hunt become the economic beneficiaries in the areas where animals are resettled. I'm advocating going forward into the future for a collaborative governance model that integrates communities, especially those that are bordering those national parks. But I'm also advocating for a system that breeds wildlife, flora, our fauna, in areas where we cannot do conventional agriculture, like the examples that I've given you. So we expand the frontiers of our wildlife habitats to include these communities where our people, our ancestors and parentage were driven to by colonialism. When they drove them out of these parks where they were peacefully coexisting with wildlife, they went and created the tribal trust lands, okay, that did not have these benefits that I'm talking about. So we want an inculcation. The campfire model is a typical example, but we must see the expansion of frontiers, the repopulation of wildlife species in these areas as part of the business opportunity going forward into the future.
I'm sure a lot of people now have actually lost that sustainability element. You've recently launched the International Year of Sustainable Tourism. What does it encompass and who is involved?
Well, the United Nations every year designates an international year around a current theme or a theme that is basically cross-cutting and relevant to the globe. And you have seen them celebrate gender issues, celebrate the youth. This year, we've been privileged that they want to celebrate tourism. And it's the third time that it is happening in 50 years. So the first International Year on Tourism was in 1967 when we celebrated the International Passport to Peace, tourism. Then in year 2002, when we celebrated the Year of Ecotourism. And now this year, 2017, the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development. Now, why sustainability? Because the UN system itself has also signposted SDGs going forward to 2030, okay? And there are 3 assigned to the tourism sector. SDG number 8 on decent work and growth. SDG number 12 on sustainable consumption and production. And SDG number 14 on life underwater. But we have a cross-cutting presence in all the 17 as tourism. So we have to emphasize and bring to prominence these 3 SDGs that have been specifically assigned to us. And we marked that International Year on the day that Vice President Mnangagwa launched it. Yes. And there are a number of activities that the ZTA committed itself to commemorate and celebrate around this International Year. They include cleaning up of our cities and the environment. They include the carnival. They include other events like the African Youth Conference that is coming up on the 6th of September. Yeah, so we are busy.
Yes, you are. I want to pick up on cleaning up campaigns and focusing on tourism. Surely that's not enough. Surely what we need to do is to actually educate people, not to actually put the litter on the ground in the first place. We could be cleaning up every single day, but people will still not know that this is what we do when we have got rubbish or when we've got litter, etc. How can we educate people as the tourism industry?
We need to move away, obviously, from cleaning up campaigns for cameras to what you're talking about. Catch them young.
Catch them young. Right.
Catch them young from ECD. We must catch them young.
Are there any initiatives?
We move to the next stage where people are actually led in the front by leadership on a clean environment and understanding that cleanliness is everybody's business. And that will take us leadership actually leading in the front. And the typical example of a country that is doing that very well is Rwanda. They have designated, I think, every Friday or every second Friday is cleanup day. You don't see even a small speck of litter.
That's good.
On Rwandan's Kigali streets.
Wow.
Because they do it as a matter of religion, as a country, and they are attuned to it. It's a national psyche. For us, it could be a psychological problem right now in the nation, because nations also get sick, and we need to fix that.
Okay. Carnivals. You also mentioned carnivals just now. Are carnivals Zimbabwean?
Carnivals have always been traditional to the extent that we had Jenaguru, and we had all those things that we used to celebrate our post-harvest accomplishments and so forth.
Yes.
Carnivals today are brand celebrations in procession. People marching, showing off their floats. I was saying to the chief executive of the ZTA the other day that I think we now must graduate to the next level, where we start doing brand floats for companies, for institutions, as opposed to just marching. Because we have been marching.
Yes.
If we want to march, we do Million Men's March. But if we want a brand Zimbabwean procession, we do floats. And I think we are agreed on how we should proceed this year. I hope it will happen, given the limited time that's left.
Okay. Because I was going to take it to the fact that, do people not get a cultural shock within Zimbabwe when they see some of these carnivals? Do they understand what the tourism industry is trying to achieve?
It's those are mobile processions of brand Zimbabwe. It's not about tourism. Everyone can be in that brand procession with their products. It's about brand Zimbabwe. It's not about tourism. And also those carnivals ultimately are not just about music. It's about exposing the totality of what constitutes our Zimbabweanness.
That's right.
But in fiesta style.
I think the last question from me is that there's a lot of talk that our pricing structures are not friendly within Zimbabwe, which is why we find that people stay in neighboring countries and they come to Zimbabwe for day visits. Is this true? What is your view on it?
It's very true that some even bring food, like the train that snakes into Victoria Falls from South Africa. Some actually come loaded with food. So we need to fix that. And terming pricing is a national exercise. It's a national exercise that cannot be done by tourism in isolation to everyone else, because currency reforms are quite topical right now in the country, and much of the steep pricing is driven by the choice of currency that we have embraced as a country, the US dollar. So in order to induce internal devaluation, we have to go for a weaker currency, and that is always why I've advocated for rand pricing, because we have a benchmark that we can compare ourselves to, which is next door. But it can't happen in isolation to the political goodwill that is also required in order to take that step forward. It also can't happen outside even the buy-in from our local people to adopt transactional currencies around the yen, the rand. To me, even more positive solutions than sticking to the US dollar. So it's everybody's business. It's not Minister Chinamasa's business alone. It's not Manguya, the governor's business alone, nor my business. It's everyone's business. That's why I insist all the time on this CODESA type of approach. We need to sit down now in Zimbabwe and say, who are we trying to inflict injury to? We are inflicting injury to ourselves, but we are very quick to blame the next guy when we actually are not connecting our own goodwill to the leadership that is being provided in trying to recover this economy. Yeah.
Dr. Mzembi, what is your vision for Zimbabwe tourism, let's say in the next 20 years? Where would you like Zimbabwe to be in terms of tourism? And how can we as local people, the people who are on the ground, how can we help to get to that vision?
An inclusive product enjoyed by the totality of our people. Accessible, affordable, empowering. That's what I see going forward into the future.
Dr. Mzembi, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming to speak to us and shedding light on the tourism industry in Zimbabwe. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, my sister.
Dr. Mzembi used Isaiah 60 verse 11 to explain the importance of tourism and wealth into a country. He highlighted that the scripture states that the gates must be kept open so that the wealth of the Gentiles may be brought into the country. Global tourism has been ranked third place in export earnings, and in Zimbabwe, tourism is contributing 10% of the country's GDP. An all-inclusive product that is affordable, accessible, and empowering is what Minister Mzembi is aspiring for tourism in Zimbabwe. This can only be achieved through unity by the people of Zimbabwe. Link up with me on Twitter at Mazwi Shamu and like my Facebook page, Mazwi Shamu, so we continue this conversation.
Star FM, sounding good all the time.
Our destination for the week is the spectacular Kariba. Did you know that Kariba is the largest man-made lake in the world? There are many stories that are put forward to explain the name Kariba. Some elders in the area note that close to the dam wall lies a rock that resembles a traditional stone trap, riva, hence Kariba, later mispronounced by Europeans as Kariba. The other version is that the rock was named Kariba due to the fact that when the river flooded, the rock trapped water, thereby making it difficult for the locals who often cross the river to return to the other side of the Zambezi. There are many different activities that one can do, including game viewing, bird watching, and fishing. Houseboats are popular on the lake and can transport tourists to a number of islands. There are up to 102 islands on Lake Kariba, including Fothergill Island, Antelope Island, Snake Island, and many, many others. One of the most popular activities on the island is tiger fishing. Did you know those tiger fishing tournaments draw people from all over the world? And the biggest tiger fish caught weighed about 45 kgs. If you've been to Kariba and you've never been to the heights where you overlook the lake, that is a must next time. Kariba can make you totally unwind and forget about the cares of the world. That Nyami Nyami story. The Nyami Nyami is the Batonga people's river god. The river god is believed to have supernatural powers. The Nyami Nyami is believed to be a dragon-like amphibious being with the head of a fish and a snake's torso. The story is, once in a while, he tries to cross the dam wall to his wife trapped on the other side of the lake. And when he tries, the locals in the area feel the tremors as he hits the dam wall. There are frequent tremors there, so if you happen to feel one when you're there, just know it's the Nyami Nyami. The scientific explanation, however, is that there's a large volume of water putting pressure on the earth. That causes that seismic activity. In fact, more than 20 earthquakes have been recorded in the area with a Richter scale of more than 5. Nyami Nyami was how the Europeans pronounced it, but the actual name is Nyama Nyama. As the river god in times of drought, the local Tonga would pray to him and have rituals, and he would reveal part of himself that they would cut off and live off as a community. Make it a point to visit Kariba. There are plenty of accommodation facilities for all budgets to suit every need. Kariba is accessible by air or road, which makes it ideal for a weekend getaway. Till next week, happy traveling.
Thank you for tuning in to the Travel and Tourism Show on Star FM.